It's been a very perplexing year for Kawhi Leonard. He started the year injured, and then he came back for 9 games. Then there seemed to be some miscommunication, perhaps mishandling of his quad injury. And now he's back with the team, but not playing. Then there's this news. There's been news over the weekend that they had an extension from Brand Jordan, his sneaker sponsor, on the table for 4 years, $20 million, over $5 million a year, that he and his representatives turned down because they did not believe it represented his value in the market. I find this odd. That seems like a nice number for Kawhi Leonard, someone who's not exactly the most outspoken star in the NBA, to make from a sneaker company. What do you think about this decision to turn down the offer from Brand Jordan?
Well, it seems bizarre because of all of the other things that have plagued the relationship with Kawhi and the Spurs this entire year. How initially you were going through the summer and you felt like he was going to be there to start the season. Then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, he's not going to be in training camp? And then you start the year, he's not in uniform. Then they bring him back, which seems to be a misdiagnosis of his injury. He only plays 9 games. And then I go on First Take, I open my mouth, and I talk about the fact that Kawhi doesn't necessarily seem to be as happy in San Antonio as everybody would think that he should be, based on the fact of he's won a championship there. He's been a champion there. He's been Defensive Player of the Year, Finals MVP. He doesn't say much. That should be the ideal situation for a player like this, as you said, that doesn't seek the spotlight, who still drives a 20-year-old vehicle. Okay, that's who Kawhi Leonard is, a low-key, low-maintenance superstar that made himself into one of the top players in the game. And then all of a sudden it's like, who's representing him again? He changed his agents. Now he's being represented by a family member. And you know how that works for public consumption. When you go from being represented by somebody who's done this for a living to somebody, you're their first client, everybody else is like, wait a minute, let's pay attention to how these moves are being handled. And so now all of a sudden he's not in uniform. He initially was like, well, you know, we'll see if he's able to even come back this year. And then Pop goes out there and says, well, if he doesn't come back certain time, then I guess you can't put a guy back out there. And then it's announced that he's going to come back in March. And then now this news comes out for public consumption. I will to say this, however.
What's up?
He's worth more than $5 million a year for a shoe company.
Is he though? Is he though? Because
Yes,
I
he
think
is.
selling shoes is different than scoring the basketball. It's like, I think there's on-court marketability and on-court performance, and then there's the off-court stuff, which he just isn't born with. He doesn't have that it factor. He doesn't have the Joel Embiid Twitter feed. He doesn't have the smiles. He doesn't have that marketability, that walk down the street, that engaging personality that makes young kids look up to. The way Steph Curry blew up a few years ago and sold all those shoes for Under Armour, a lot of that had to do with young children just looking up to Steph Curry and the smile and the personality and the accessibility, and it feels like Kawhi Leonard is nowhere near that. While he's a great basketball player, I'm not lining up outside of a sneaker store to buy Kawhi Leonard signature shoes.
You're so wrong with this. That's such a media take, because while you name me 3 or 4 guys that are terrific players, and for social media and their off-court personalities may be larger, we're not talking about that. We're talking about Jordan, Brand, deal.
And selling shoes. And Kawhi Leonard is not going to sell shoes.
And allow me to finish, please.
I don't want to.
And just like I allowed you to finish.
Okay,
so
first take, Jalen.
What'd you say?
Okay, first take, Jalen.
So what ends up happening is you're looking at his market value, comparing him to a couple of guys because you know what they get. But you're not comparing them to the fact this is more, he deserves more based on the market. I can name you 100 guys, yeah, I said it, that make around $5 million from shoe companies. Kawhi Leonard should be making double of that, David Jacoby.
Okay, that's your opinion. I do not think that Kawhi Leonard is going to be able to sell shoes the same way that other stars that aren't as good at basketball as Kawhi Leonard are, because of Kawhi Leonard's lack of personality.
So let me ask you this.
Okay.
Do you think James Harden getting $200 million from Adidas and Kawhi getting $20 million from Brand Jordan, do you think that's comparable?
No, I don't think that's comparable. But I also think that James Harden's shoes are kind of ugly, and that's his problem. But moving on.
But you didn't say
But
about
moving
oh, so hold on.
I'm trying to move on here, Jalen. I'm trying to host the show, Jalen.
All right, you didn't say nothing about kids lining up to buy his shoes. You didn't say nothing about his Twitter feed. You didn't say nothing about his personality. Now you want to run to the fact that, oh, they're ugly.
No, James Harden is a much more marketable star, but for a lot of other reasons.